One thing that I recommend is don't neglect them only because you don't enjoy doing those certain activities. They can be ignored. You can't look away from them. So, but yes, sooner or later, particularly during growing pains, you will have to involve yourself and spend much more time than what you anticipated doing things that you don't necessarily enjoy. But if you don't, you will be perhaps in a bind down the road, and you will limit the growth of your companies.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the podcast. Again, I'm Bill Barrett, and thrilled to have everybody with us today. Today, we are thrilled to have our guest, Jose Berlanga, with us. And Jose, for those people who don't know you, I'd love to just jump in and give you a chance to kind of give a little bit of your overview. You have a very interesting entrepreneurial background and have been involved in a lot of different things. And I think it might be interesting for our entrepreneurs who are listening. I've found throughout my career that a lot of entrepreneurs, they gravitate to a particular industry or profession, or sometimes there's these synergistic reasons why they enter into different businesses. You've been involved in a lot of different things. So give us a little bit of an overview of you and your journey and how you got to where you are now.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, Bill, thank you so much for having me. It's great to be on your show. Certainly a fun topic of conversation. Entrepreneurship has been my life. I have been doing this for many years now, for several decades. I guess one of the misconceptions, I don't talk too much about my career. I don't really. I've been one of those people that it's a little more on the mysterious side, on the anonymous side of things. I'm predominantly known for most people around me as the builder, the developer, the guy in the real estate business. But fortunately, I don't consider myself that. Although I sometimes get put in a box, I get categorized as someone who is a builder and a developer. I truly consider myself an entrepreneur. That is my passion. That is what I like. That is what I enjoy. Business takes you in different directions. Destiny takes you in different directions. I have never, an interesting fact is that I've never truly enjoyed operating businesses. I've been more of the guy that likes to put the deals together. I like to assemble things, put the pieces of the puzzle together, launching things, starting things, creating opportunities, coming up with a vision, with concepts. But for one reason or another, over the last 35 or so years, I always end up operating, sitting behind the desk, doing a lot of the dirty work. Don't ask me why or how. Call it a little bit of being responsible, OCD, a control freak, wanting to do things a certain way. Maybe putting so much time and so much risk in any given deal that at some point I struggle letting go of control. Or as any relationship, the more you invest, the more time you spend on any given subject, on any given person, on any given business, it becomes more and more important to you and to your life, where you just gravitate to it, and before you know it, you want to handle every little aspect and every corner of the business. That's been my case. I never planned, I never intended to be the hands-on operating full-time guy, but that's where I've ended up. That's how my career has gone. So just to summarize it, yes, I've been for 25 or so years, I've owned a residential construction company or companies. Before then, I was in a number of other businesses and industries. And even within the 25 years that I was building and developing, something I rarely spoke about, and it didn't come up very often, just because sometimes socially, the last thing I want to do is talk about business or talk about myself or or explain what I do is that I never stopped dabbling in other things because that was my passion. My daytime job was building and developing and investing in real estate. But my passion was starting businesses, participating as a partner, as an investor, as a consultant, as someone who provide ideas and a vision, helping put pieces of the puzzle for these businesses together. And that has taken me through a very, very fun journey where I can honestly say that there have been few industries that I haven't been somewhat involved in. You name it, I probably know a little bit about it. I'll wrap this question up with the fact that somehow I don't consider myself, and this is probably a lot of entrepreneurs can relate to this. I don't consider myself an expert in anything. To a certain extent, I often feel that insecurity that I am not very savvy in any particular given area or sector of a business, but I know a little bit about all of them. I can understand the concept of putting a deal together. I understand the language of money, of finances, of a P&L. I understand a balance sheet. And once you understand the fundamentals and once you kind of wrap your head around how the business world operates, you can begin to incorporate that information and that knowledge and that experience just in about every type of industry, every type of product, every type of service. And that is fascinating to me, how that expertise, that experience, that know-how, I can easily translate it. Once I understand the fundamentals, the industry standards, the cost structure of any type of model, I can grab that information and run with it and translate it and relatively quickly understand the operation of a business, the ins and outs, the pros and cons, so on and so forth. So anyway, that's been my trajectory: entrepreneurship / builder developer, and everything in between.
Yeah. So just a little bit about the building. I understand. Give me a little sense for our listeners on, is this multifamily housing, single family housing? Is it in a particular geographical area? Is it all over the country? I'm just trying to get a sense so people can understand the scope of what it is that you are doing on the building side.
Yes. I've done a lot of real estate in different areas within the industry. The bulk, the really main part of my activity has been residential construction developments, number one. Number two, inner city, predominantly revitalizing neighborhoods in the inner city. So that has been really where I've spent the bulk of my career. So, you may call them transitional neighborhoods. As you know, many cities went through a rejuvenation process where for one reason or another, larger builders went out to the suburbs, and it became easier to build those larger subdivisions, master plan communities. And at some point, the inner cities began to start being forgotten somewhat. And at some point, as cities grew, as traffic got impossible in major metropolitan areas, and as trends began to readjust, inner cities began to get popular again, which is when I started in this business. So that's how I came into real estate. Although I had already done a few transactions here and there, I often say that we're all in real estate one way or another, whether we understand it or not, even whether it's as a tenant, as a landlord, as a home buyer, as someone who needs space to operate their business. Sooner or later, we're all going to face the reality of being in the real estate game. So, but little by little, I also started diversifying into other sectors: commercial, multifamily, a little bit of light industrial, mostly investing, what they call more of the passive investment type of deals, which I've also learned that that's a misconception. Passive investments are rarely as passive as they claim to be, especially if you want to make some money in them. So, but yes, little by little, I've diversified into different sectors, but I still spend most of my time and most of my activities in the residential single family construction.
Okay. There's one question I have related to this, and then I want to talk about, you talked about ending up being an operator all the time, which I'm going to get to. But um, I've represented a lot of people over the years in real estate construction and development, and especially I'll call my emerging clients who've had some success and are trying to grow. And I'm just curious, like, to maybe hear a little of your story. One of the things that people will find challenging in that sector is getting access or opportunity to quality deals, like deals where there's room to make money, where there's real upside. And some of the complaints I'll hear from the up and coming developers are, the bigger players that have been around, they get those phone calls before people know about the parcel of land that's going to be available, or they'll get a call from a municipality that'll say, we're looking to redevelop an area. We're calling you because you're a player. And some up and coming developers could easily do that project, but they kind of don't find out about it, right? So when you got started, and how did you go about developing, creating, or finding those opportunities in the earlier stages?
Well, that's a very interesting question, and an interesting subject too. I explain it a little bit in my book. I recently wrote a book, the Business of Home Building, which I'll tell you a little bit about later on. But I talk about the fact you are very correct, very right. That's a good statement. That in the initial stages, once you're an investor or you want to get into real estate, the deals don't come to you. They're hard to find. They're very difficult to find opportunities. But the way I explain it is, for example, as you as an attorney or any other person who has ever become a professional in any area, call it a doctor, an architect, you don't get patients overnight, just like you don't get clients overnight when nobody knows you. You have to look for them. You have to establish a name. You have to establish a reputation, and it's gradual. Whoever assumes or expects that they're going to jump into real estate and they're going to grab deals and they're going to find them and they're going to come to them overnight and they're going to be able to get the best deals in the market, they're living in a fantasy world. It's not realistic. It's a misconception because it appears to be an easier business than it truly is. So when I started, it was difficult. I started with a very small transaction, and it wasn't the best deal. We didn't make any money on it, but I learned. And then we did a second one, and then we did a third. And I had to invest so many hours, so much time looking for these deals, knocking on doors, cold calling sellers, brokers, agencies, driving around block by block, looking for sale by owner transactions, looking on tax records. It was exhausting work. And if we expect it to just happen easy, we're confused about how this business works. Now, little by little, over time, I began to make contacts. I began to make friends in the business. I also began to build some credibility to prove myself as someone that could come up with the investment, with the financing. I could close deals. I could make transactions work. Brokers, agents, sellers, they don't want to work with people who are going to make them waste their time and not make things happen. So you have to prove yourself. And you can start with a very small deal, but assume that it's going to take time. Don't expect things to work overnight. So before you know it, deals gradually begin to come to you. So this is one of the things that I explain about this business. At first, you have to chase them. You have to work very hard. You have to invest a lot of time, effort, energy, discipline, consistency, perseverance. And eventually, before you know it, you start the deals start flowing, and they start coming to you faster than you were able to capture them. So that's how it happened. So
Yeah.
baby steps, little bit at a time.
And no substitute for a lot of hard work and hours spent and energy put in. And isn't it interesting how in all verticals and all entrepreneurial endeavors, that's a common thread that we see, and in all these conversations we have here on Fingerprints on Success, over and over, the issue of the groundwork, the hard work, all the effort that goes into building the reputation and, little by little gaining it. I have a joke I'll share with you internally with one of my partners, where when people talk about getting new clients, getting business, and how hard it is, and we joke about my magic phone, and that the magic phone just rings, and there's clients at the other end of it who now want to engage us. And I'm so glad that I happen to just have this magic phone. Of course, we're always laughing because, it's 25 years of relationship building and earning a reputation and doing deals and little by little clawing your way through your professional life to get to a point where, yes, the phone does ring quite a bit, but because of a lot of years of a lot of hard work. And every entrepreneur in every vertical has a similar story. So I appreciate you sharing yours. So you talked about operations, which I
Yeah.
think, so this is another interesting thread, I think. I just got off the phone literally right before we got on for the podcast with a longtime client of mine. And, he's involved in several different businesses, and he's going over a new acquisition with me. And it was just interesting. Like, he's so knee deep in all the operations at these different businesses. And many of the ones he acquired had good opportunity, but they were poorly run. And he finds himself knee deep in the operations. So the question I have, and by the way, and usually a lot of my entrepreneurs like him that are knee deep in the operations complain about having to be so knee deep in the operations. So I guess one of my questions for you is, are you striving to not be so involved in the operations? Like, is there a goal to to maybe be more of the visionary in the space you like to be in, and less operational? And are you having any success, or have you just accepted that you're good at it and that's it?
Great question, because that is an irony. I'm often told that I'm pretty good at what I do, and why would I not enjoy doing it? The truth is that I became good at something that I'm not very excited about at times. A lot of the administrative work, or the lack of having ever found someone to do it. I end up doing a lot of the operations. And yes, sometimes I just tell myself, this is my life, this is what I do, this is what I'm good at, and I should just deal with it and come to terms with it. Every year, incidentally, I keep telling myself that this is the last year that I'm going to be sitting behind the desk doing all of these tasks. But at some point, I realized that I do so many types of deals that require common sense, that require thinking process, that are not cookie cutter, where my participation is required, and somehow I end up getting back into it. So I make that mistake. I understand the concept. I rationalize the fact that in order to build a company and build a business, you have to let go. You have to get good people in different areas of your company, and you have to delegate. That's a term that sometimes we overuse and really not truly understand the art of delegating and knowing when it works and when it doesn't. How to build repetition, because it's easier to delegate areas when you're handing over a very well-defined type of activity rather than something that's kind of vague. So in some cases, I've achieved passing on a lot of my responsibilities when the tasks are simple, they're repetitive, they're consistent, and they're self-explanatory. Once they start getting a little bit confusing and there are gray areas, I've always had trouble handing over some of those areas. But it all has to do with maybe two aspects: the type of business, whether your business is repetitive or not, um, and whether you design it around you as a practice, sort of like the architect, the doctor, the engineer, where the attorney, where if you're not there, the dentist, if you're not there, there is no business. You are it. And there are companies that have a product, a service, a process well defined, where you don't necessarily have to be there in order to operate. So you have to, first of all, you have to identify what business you're in. And then again, come to terms with reality, whether your concept, your model requires you and will require you in order to succeed, or if you're in the type of business where you can train people to achieve these activities without your presence. So there's a lot to it. Somehow, I've managed to be in particular niche markets that tend to require a lot of my attention. And at some point, I put enough skin in the game, enough risk, enough of a gamble in them that perhaps I'm not willing to let go of many parts of each one of these deals. But again, I think all of us are different. All of us have different levels of comfort as to how much we want to run within the business. One thing I know, and I know that many entrepreneurs are going to agree with me and relate to this, is that sometimes we fantasize about the business that we're going to get into. We get into an industry or into a business for a specific reason, because there's something that we like about it. There's something that attracts us about that particular concept. But before you know it, we end up doing all of these other activities that had nothing to do with the reason why we got into business in the first place. And sooner or later, you're spending very little time doing the ones that you do like. Now, there's another contradiction that I like to explain. The ugly side about it is that all of those duties that we don't enjoy, that we don't like, the administrative, the housekeeping, the accounting, the legal, the operation side of your business in every department in every area, if they're ignored, and if you invest way too much time doing what you enjoy within the business, you have less chances to succeed, and you put your business in a vulnerable position. So unfortunately, until you find the right team that can take care of those areas that you don't enjoy and that you're not particularly good at, unless you get lucky enough and find that right team, one thing that I recommend is don't neglect them only because you don't enjoy doing those certain activities. They can be ignored. You can't look away from them. So, but yes, sooner or later, particularly during growing pains, you will have to involve yourself and spend much more time than what you anticipated doing things that you don't necessarily enjoy. But if you don't, you will be perhaps in a bind down the road, and you will limit the growth of your company. So there are no areas within a business that can be ignored. So, and one mistake that all of us as entrepreneurs make is to invest too much time in one area of the business. Let's call it sales if we enjoy it, or marketing, or social media, or dealing with our clients. Or if we're technical, we want to create that product and perfect that product. But then the other areas start falling apart a little bit at a time. And one area of the business, unfortunately, cannot sustain your operation. So look at your business in every department, in every area, as your children. They all need your time. They all need your attention. They all need to be special in order for things to work.
Okay. When you reflect on your successful journey, do you think that there are certain guiding principles or practices that, kind of like a theme that when you reflect, you say, this was a mindset that I had or a guiding principle that has definitely made a big contribution to my success and that you would pass on to others?
Yes, absolutely. And in addition to the obvious ones that we all know and that we all hear often, hard work, discipline, consistency, sacrifice, all those call them cliches that we all know and that are very true. But the mental frame of mind, without even knowing that I've applied, let's call it, one has been stubbornness. I don't consider failing, walking away. I have to make it work. I'm one of those very, very tenacious people that, yes, I get tired. Yes, I feel like walking away when things get difficult. Quite often, as a matter of fact, I feel like throwing the towel and saying, what am I doing? Why am I hurting myself, putting myself through this amount of pain, putting my entire life into this business or these deals, and nothing is going my way and nothing is working the way I planned it. So yes, I feel like walking away more times than I can think. But the number one quality is that, and this may sound weird, particularly if you have a family, but I've put my business ahead of everything else. Fortunately, a, a very big part of my journey as an entrepreneur, I was a single guy and I had no children, but I was, let's call it, I was very envious of my time, and I did not have a second priority. My business was priority number two, number one, number two, number three, and I had no time for anything else. I was willing to give everything to my goals, to my objectives. I had nothing else that I wanted to think about. I wanted nothing else to do other than making my business work. So if you don't go in, if you go in thinking that you want to start a company just because of what the company can give you, just the results, the money, the success, the growth, the satisfaction, that's probably the wrong way to start. You really have to think about what it is that I'm willing to give to this company. How bad do I want it? What am I willing to sacrifice? Am I willing to walk away from friends, from weekends, from evenings, from sleeping, from all of these things that, from a social life? Or are those too important for me to ignore in order for me to build a business? So that was an easy answer for me. I didn't even ask myself that question. My business always drew my attention and my time without even having to think. So the accumulation of hours and passion and effort eventually, and I'm not going to say that it was always successful. I mean, I've failed so many times, more times than I've succeeded. But the success is made up for the failures, and it was certainly the amount. I come from the school where your business, your work is the number one priority, and I'm going to explain it this way. I learned this really from my father from the time I was a child. The business was more important than all of us in our family, which sounds wrong in today's era of political correctness where the family is everything. Well, let me tell you something. Without your business, without your career, without your income, there is no family. You cannot have medical attention. You cannot have a roof over your head. You cannot have vehicles and services and utilities and all of the things that your family needs. And that was taught to me at a very young age where no. Yes, your family may be more important in your mind, but in your time and in your actions and in your efforts, your business has to come first, because without that, there is no family.
Well,
So that's how I grew up.
And I appreciate that. In fact, one of my favorite Zig Ziglar quotes is money isn't everything, but it's kind of like air on the gotta have it scale. And I
Yeah.
always found that to be great because, to your point, yeah, money isn't everything, that's for sure. And your business and success isn't the end all be all because, like without health, for example, you got nothing. But the family doesn't have shelter, the family doesn't have food, the family doesn't have health care, the family doesn't have education without some financial success. And so that's a reality. And I think you're right. I think today a lot of people are, they are bashful to say that out loud, but I commend you for saying it, because really at the end of the day it is still a reality. And whether people like it or not, I think it's a reality. So
Yeah, yeah.
um,
And if you have a good family that's with you and that understands and supports you and wants you to progress and wants them to progress, they will understand it. Fortunately, something that I want to tell your listeners, particularly the younger ones, start now. If you have any ambition, any desire to be an entrepreneur or to start a career, do it sooner than later. Reverse the process. Most of us, when we're young, we want to get that fun out of the way and then start a business and then get serious about life. Well, it should be the other way. Do it now when you don't have a lot of financial obligations, children, and a family, because that will make it harder. It doesn't mean that it's impossible, but it will be much harder once you have those additional things in your responsibilities in your life. So if you can, do it immediately and put all of your time and all of your effort while you can.
yeah, I think that's great advice. And in fact, I got that exact advice when I was just starting out as a lawyer. I was at a worldwide law firm in New York City, and very quickly was realizing, that was investing enormous amounts of time, yeah, in a career, but in a job. And I realized that if I wanted to build a business and be an entrepreneurial lawyer that helped become part of and build a firm, and do that on my own and get the benefits of what that would be, I realized that, being at a worldwide law firm in New York at a young age, that you're kind of wasting your time if your goal is to be an entrepreneurial professional and to build an organization. And at a young age, I took the leap and left a big firm in New York to become part of an entrepreneurial law firm. And I'm glad that I did it early on. And my father was the one who gave me that advice, who said, don't wait too long, because you'll find that if you just keep going on a traditional career path, life's going to get in the way, and you might not be able to make that leap to being an entrepreneur later on. So I think that that's terrific advice, and I appreciate you sharing that. So let me flip it around a little bit. When you think back
That's a great
on,
quote, by the way. By the way, life will get on the way. I
yeah,
love it because it's so true. You have to act before your life gets too complicated.
yeah, yeah, and like you said, responsibilities. The more responsibilities you have, sometimes the harder the leap is. There's another thing that you said too, another nugget in there that people might pick up on, which is you talked about, if you have a family, the support of the family, everyone being behind what you're doing. And a good friend of mine, who's also a client but a very good friend, has said, throughout his whole professional life, and he's an entrepreneur, um, his his life, his friends, his family, the business, they were all just intertwined. He said, I never thought of it as this work-life balance. It was just my life. And it just all melded together. He said, so if I was putting on a seminar, sometimes my kids were in the back of the room, at the seminar when they were little kids and they were playing with something,
Yeah.
but they were there because they had to be there. And he said, and many times the people I worked with and did business with, they were also my personal friends. So he basically described it as a lifestyle, and not this concept today that people talk about where there has to be this separation. Oh, I have to have my work-life balance. And
Yeah.
he's a wildly successful entrepreneur with many friends. and does many fun things and enjoys his life, but it's all kind of melded together over the years. So I always found that to be interesting. But I want to shift gears on you to the other side of the coin, which is when you reflect on your success and your journey, what are some of the pitfalls or things where you would tell our listeners, our entrepreneurs out there, okay, here's what I wouldn't do again, or here's, kind of lessons learned that I wish someone had whispered to me 20 years ago, don't do these following things and you'd be better off. What are some of those things you'd like to share?
Well, so many. Let me pick a couple. Let me think out loud here. But one is to pace yourself. We underestimate what we can do in a 5-year period. We overestimate what we can do in a day. We want to do, and I continue to do that. I tend to rush. I tend to want to take on too much, get myself into more deals than what I truly have time or the comfort level doing. So think of your success as an accumulation of consistent, regular, disciplined, small steps that will little by little will get you to where you want to get. And understand that it's going to take some time, but every day you have to do something to move forward. So the advice is do it every day. Every day, put something into it, but don't expect so much out of these small steps on your everyday activities. That's something that I've made the error of getting either disappointed because in a short period of time things are not moving the way that I anticipated, or the other way around. Just starting to spread myself thin, doing too many things at the same time. Focus, pick one job, one objective at a time, define what you want. And perhaps that leads me to the next one. Understand who you are. We don't know that there are different ways to succeed. There are different personalities. No one can turn you into an ambitious person. No one can turn you into a motivated person. You have to do that on your own. You have to first identify who you are, what you want. Don't just get up and go do something without really understanding the why. What are you doing? Why are you doing it? And where do you want to get? What are some of the things that drive you, that motivate you? Not all of us are perhaps designed to run a business. Not all of us are designed to just focus on making money or building a company. Some of us want other things in life. And I think one of them is, don't rush to start living your life without really getting to know yourself, identifying who you are, what you want, and where do you want to get. Then you can design a plan that fits those objectives. So don't start like me. I started backwards. I started working, chasing deals, trying to make money, and I didn't really understand what was it about the business world that was fun for me, that was interesting. What was the end goal? I was just working, sort of like with blinders, and I used to rush and put too much on my shoulders. So that's one of the recommendations. But yes, the famous persistency is the mother of all successful stories. Is just unless you already have some form of experience. Some of us have experience from our families, from their businesses. I didn't have that example. I had to start from scratch, where I truly had to begin from zero and really learn the business. So don't run before you walk.
Okay. When you think back, can you pinpoint certain people in your life or mentors that you've had throughout your life, or maybe someone in particular where you look back and say, if it wasn't for this person and the impact that they made or what I learned from them, maybe I wouldn't be as successful as I am. Maybe this journey might have gone not quite as well, but for this person in my life. Anyone that you could think of that you'd like to share a little of that story and who they were and how they made an impact?
Well, that's a very, very interesting question that I'm going to share a very different answer, very unorthodox answer, because I'm very cautious when I learn from others. I'm very cautious when I take advice, and I'm very cautious when I give advice because it's a very, very dangerous field. Rather than, yes, I'm going to mention that the one person that devoted plenty of time to me in understanding the business world, of course, was my father. um, he he was really the only person in my life that has devoted time directly to me in the process of understanding business. I have to admit that I had a weird journey where I didn't have very many mentors that actually devoted any time training me, teaching me. And what I'm going to say about that is, as a matter of fact, I'm going to reverse that. I'm going to say that some of my biggest failures in life were because I paid too much attention to people that were giving me advice.
Mm.
I'm one of those people that are open-minded, very kind, very friendly, very um, just open to suggestions. And sometimes I've acted against my gut feeling, against my nature, and made decisions that I didn't feel were the right ones because I got recommendations from people who I admired and who I respected, and they took me in the wrong direction. Those ended up hurting more than the failures that I made because of decisions that came from me. So I this is a very weird answer because we need to be open-minded. We need to learn from others. We need to take advice and have mentors. But we also need to filter information and be careful who we listen to, how we listen, and ultimately follow our vision. If you
Yeah.
succeed and if you fail, you want it to be because you did things a way that you understood things to be and the way that you knew that they were going to work, and follow that. There have been businesses that didn't go my way because I listened too much to others. And
I
unfortunately, they didn't really understand where I was going with my business. I should have been more stubborn. I should have been more specific in what I wanted and followed the step-by-step program that my brain was telling me.
Well, I like the answer because it is unorthodox. It is a little, usually, and there's nothing wrong with this either. Usually, our typical guest will dive into these critical people in their life, and no one's really talked about the fact of being cautious and checking your gut is really what you're saying, um, and I think it's a very, very good point, which is sometimes you also have to balance advice with your own instincts. Um, I will tell
Correct.
you
Make
that
your own conclusions. Your own
yeah,
conclusions at the end of the
the
day.
worst financial investment I ever made was one where a person I admire and respect, who has been very successful, wanted to invest in a business, and when I looked at it, it really wasn't measuring up for me. It just didn't. It just didn't seem to be. There was something about it that was making me say, I don't know. I don't know if I'm feeling it the way he is, but he was so passionate about it. And because the person that was running this opportunity and building out this business to invest in, what had once before been very, very successful and sold the company for a few $100 million and so on, there was like a real push to get involved. So I kept analyzing it and saying, it's not feeling like something that feels so magical to me, but you know, maybe I'm going to follow this advice and guidance. Well, anyway, you know how
Yeah.
the story ends. The story ends where the investment was terrible, the money was lost, the person did not achieve the success again that they had achieved the first time around. And really, had I just kind of measured that advice with my own gut and instincts, I would have saved myself a lot of heartache and some dollars as
Yeah,
well. So I love the answer
absolutely.
to the question the way you posed
So,
it.
sometimes we want to be agreeable. We want to be diplomatic. We want to do the right thing. We don't want to make mistakes and fall into certain traps. But some of the most successful people in the world, they just follow their vision. I'm not saying that you need to be a stubborn, square-minded person that just won't listen to anyone. What I'm saying is that you should listen, but really you're the only one that knows where you're headed. You're the only one that knows what you want out of any given career or deal or business. And paying too much attention could get distracting for trying. Even we do it even as within our family. You know, we how many people have followed the wrong path, the wrong career, because their parents recommended, no, you need to be a doctor, you need to be a financial consultant, you need to follow my footsteps, you need to take over my business. When number one, that's not what you wanted. Number two, that's not what you're good at. And you need to understand what are your strengths, what are you good at, and how to apply it. And sometimes I've failed to follow my brain in understanding where what I know I should be doing with any given business.
So,
So uh,
so you made another good comment, which you said that, just like you cautiously receive advice now, you're very also cautious about giving it. Tell me a little bit about, do you get involved in mentoring other people? Do you like to pass some of the wisdom on that you have to others? Are you more hesitant because of your past experience? What would the world say about you as a mentor, I guess, is my question.
I spend a lot of time. Now, here's the other side of the token. Um, because this is the way I look at it. I give a lot of mentoring, a lot of advice, a lot of recommendations when I'm being asked. That's the trick. If someone asks, "What? Hey, can you teach me? Can you help me understand a little more about this?" I don't tell people what to do or how to do it. I try to explain to them my experiences, what I know about the business or the industry or the subject, so that they make their own decisions and their conclusions. All I do is explain my anecdotes and my experience. Period. I don't give specific recommendations as to how it is that you should do certain things or how to operate certain things or what decisions to make, because those need to be done strictly by you. So giving advice needs to be more, in mentoring, it needs to be asking questions, needs to be a little more about learning from others and understanding what their needs are, and giving experiences rather than recommendations. Interesting that you know how I do learn that here is my form of being mentored. I watch people who are successful and I see what they do, how they live, how they dress, their disciplines, their schedules. And I learn not by being told what to do or by receiving recommendations, but by simply observing people that I would like to emulate and that I would like to be like. And that's a form that I also recommend others to follow. You know, pay attention to some of the people that you think are successful and learn a little bit of not necessarily the type of decisions they're making, because their business may be different, their concept, their industry, but more about their patterns, their behavior, their strategies, their disciplines, their schedules. What are they doing that is getting them into a more successful position? And I think that's a better way to approach learning and teaching as well.
Share with us, um, for lack of a better description, a hot topic, something that's a current issue that you're dealing with right now, or that's got you excited. Share with our listeners something that you think that they should be thinking about, or that you're excited about right now.
Well, I'll tell you what I'm excited and what I'm not excited about. How
Okay.
about that?
I like the way you give me both ends of the spectrum, which is it's a fun way to have this conversation, which is great.
Yeah. It's these are great questions, and they're triggering a lot of thoughts. As I was telling you before, I can spend all day talking about business and entrepreneurship and in companies and whatnot. This is fun for me, but I'm going to tell you what I need to get used to, that I'm not excited about, but I'm getting used to it. That we would think that at some point of our career, in our career, things get easier, things start going very smooth, and before you know it, it's on auto drive. So the part that I never get used to is that even now, as I honestly don't even need to work, I've built enough of a career, and perhaps financially, I'm in a position where I no longer need to work. Yet I managed to do that, and I still find that no deal is easy. And that keeps shocking me, that after 35 or so years of being in business, deals and transactions and companies don't get any easier. I'm still trying to get through that, because I thought when I was young that once I mastered the art of putting deals together and running companies, it would be smooth sailing. And decades later, it is not getting any easier. Every company that I start, every company that I build or participate, or every deal transaction that I get involved with, still difficult, still has headaches, obstacles, setbacks. No matter how much experience I bring to the table, there's uncertainty, there's confusion, there's unpredictable behavior in every motion of every aspect of the business. So that's crazy. And I want to tell others that, yeah, just get used to it. It's normal. If you feel like things never go your way and you don't understand what you're doing wrong, why are you not mastering the art of perfection and running business smoothly? Is because there is no such thing. Being a leader, being an entrepreneur is facing obstacles, facing problems, and solving problems on a daily basis, no matter how much you know. So that's the tough part that I don't look forward to, but I'm trying to get used to it even as we speak. Today, for example, I'm dealing with economic issues, political issues. We're changing code every day. There's changing, increasing interest rates, cyclical markets, so it never stops. On the positive side is that you start learning how to deal with those setbacks. One of the things that I'm excited about is that at my age, and which I still consider myself young, hopefully I have many years to come still in the business world, but I continue to reinvent myself. I continue to pivot and to adjust, to learn things, and to start removing some of the activities that are not so fun for me, and to invest gradually more time into those activities that are fun for me. For example, this book that I wrote and a second one that I just completed, I'm even at this stage of my career, I am still coming up with new things and new ways of entertaining myself, and creating things that are exciting and that are innovative.
Yeah.
So that is something that I'm looking forward to, for that even someone like myself in my mid 50s, I still have time to start companies, build them, and develop them. There you can always continue, and it's never too late to reinvent yourself and to move forward in everything that you're doing.
Jose, tell us a little bit about your recent book and what was the motivation behind writing it?
Well, it was cathartic. It was a very soothing experience more than anything. I've been in this business for a few decades, and I had no intention, as I mentioned earlier, I had no intentions of operating a residential construction company. And I felt like I needed to unload all of these thoughts concepts, ideas, and knowledge in order to really validate all these years of hard work. So I wrote it for me, for myself. I'm not really promoting it. I'm not making a big deal out of. I have no intention of selling books, but it is a book that talks. The interesting part is that it's not a book about building homes. It's a book about building the company. I'm sorry, and I said books. It's homes. It's a book that it's devoted to the business side of the residential construction. It's a business that shows you how to build a business that builds homes or a business that can build anything. Really speaks about entrepreneurship and startups and how to organize your thoughts and think about things that maybe most entrepreneurs that start may not occur to them, that they have to invest a little time going through the motions. So it's a fun story. And I completed a second book about land development, land investing, land speculating, and again with a twist of entrepreneurship. I want to continue doing that because it's very fun for me, and again I want to continue to reinvent my career and come up with new areas that are entertaining for me and exciting.
Well, I think that's fantastic. And Jose, I really want to thank you for taking the time to come on our podcast today. Your story is fascinating. You've been in so many different businesses, but the success level that you've had is remarkable, and we're really grateful that you were able to take the time and come on today.
Well, Bill, thank you so much. I truly appreciate the invitation, and I hope to be back again on your show.
Thanks. Take care now.
Bye bye.